Howdy, my name's Ryan. Got a good workout today. Got a long one today. We're gonna do some muscle snatches. Then we got 4 sets of 7 on back squat, 4 sets of 7 on a small deficit Romanian deadlift. It's gonna be kind of torturous. Wednesday, I'm like dedicating to a day of like just increasing volume. So whatever we talk about today, in between sets, let's have it be on the discussion of training volume and whatever else that we can piece out from that. Here we go! I'd walk through hell in a gasoline suit to play baseball, crossed out, train, or lift weights. Thank you, Pete. Comment something good that has happened lately in your life. Could be gym related, could be non-gym related, could be work related, could be socially related. Let's hear some good news in the comment section. I want to hear about it. Please, feel free. Volume. If we were to define that as generally as possible, most textbooks would say sort of the total amount of work that you do within a session. Sets times reps times load. So if I did 5 sets of 5 of a back squat with 315 pounds, 5 times 5 times 315, right? Something like that. That is how we would generally define what volume is. In and of itself, not really that difficult of a concept to understand. I don't think you really need to have been lifting weights for an extended period of time to understand volume from that definition. Let's see what else we can say about volume general stuff before we get too lost in the weeds here, and who knows where we'll go after that. You could say it's like one of the primary training variables that you can manipulate within a training program. Right? So outside of that, some other main ones would be something like intensity, or like the weights that you were lifting, what percentage of they are of your 1RM, and then also something like exercise selection, right? These massive categorical things that will drastically change the structure and like narrative of your program. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Volume has a huge impact on that. And I always try to be careful of saying blanket statements in that, like, especially like addressing maybe like strength culture as a whole, because like my perception of the strength culture is just that, my perception. Who am I to say that, you know, we generally think of volume as this, fill in the blank, you know, and speaking on behalf of everyone within strength culture. Like, that's kind of outlandish to me, but I'm gonna do it. And it seems like, or I have heard many coaches say, let me say that they think volume is king. That volume is the most important training variable, and it should receive the most attention and care when planning training programs. Oh no, I've got dead air here. Dead air. It's gonna take me forever to get these straps on. Should I tell a joke? We're almost there. Here we go. Ugly. Let's make it better. Weights feel heavy today, not gonna lie. That's all right. Come on. All right, I'm gonna labor through this after this 4 sets of squats. I'll do my best. I can think of, so as far as saying volume is king, I can't agree with that as this universal statement because it doesn't apply to every context. There's 3 primary contexts I can think of where volume would be the main training variable that I'm looking at in order to reach a desired goal, I guess you could say. The first is with someone who's very inexperienced, or just, I don't know if very inexperienced is the right word. Definitely very inexperienced, but also up to like a certain degree of inexperience. Because number one, just more volume is more practice. More practice, the better. In general, right? Practicing squatting, practicing whatever movements you're doing, like the Olympic movements, more volume is more practice. And also that volume is not very stimulating because that person is not as potentially strong as they could be. So volume is not the same for everyone. Someone who just got into weight training and did a set of 5 at 80% of the 1RM, that is not the same dose as someone who's been strength training for 5 years and does a set of 5 with 80% of the 1RM. And it's not even close. Bodybuilders, I think volume is extremely important. I think it's probably the main training variable that you should look at if you were attempting to grow as much muscle as possible. Most of the exercises that bodybuilders are doing, especially now, are not nearly as globally demanding as something like a clean and jerk, right? Doing a lot of machines, a lot of isolated movements and things like that. And so that volume seems a lot more quantifiable, or maybe even like more standardized in terms of like less intense from a global demand, particularly on the CNS. And so like trying to get in a certain amount of sets per muscle group seems like a very smart and intelligent thing to do per week. And then finally, as much as the pendulum is swinging into this like new age of strength training and thinking about training, and we have all these new ideas, some things just remain constant, and that is at the beginning of a program, typically volume is always going to remain high. And it seems like that's just the nature of things. And you can attempt to explain that through whatever physiological mechanisms you want, but to me, it just feels like the right thing to do anecdotally after training for over a decade now, and also working with so many other people as well. It's like the first thing that I want to do is make volume the primary stimulant to build a base, so to speak. Whatever that base is depends upon the context again, but there is such a phenomenon as building a base in training and allowing that base to be sort of like your footing, the ground on which you stand on once the program starts to advance and you get into more intense demands. Like having a good strong base will allow you to train harder for longer. But from there, the idea of volume just becomes so muddy to me. And it doesn't seem like a universal concept that we should apply to every single training program. If I did 1,000 pounds of volume for bicep curls and 1,000 pounds of volume for power cleans, although based upon the definition it's the same amount of work, in reality it's not even close to the same degree of stimulus. And outside of this context I just mentioned, it is extremely difficult for me, and I never will ever say for any lifter that I know the exact amount of volume that they should be using in order to like ride this sweet spot. And even just from like a practical standpoint as well, there's only so much volume you can fit into one training session regardless of how much volume you would like to achieve. Ideally, I don't want to be in the gym longer than 90 minutes. So like in most training programs, the maximum amount of sets I'm putting for any exercise outside of like maybe singles and doubles and things like that for Olympic lifting is 4. And generally it's just 2 or 3 sets. And the train of thought of like trying to determine a certain amount of sets for this exercise like never comes to mind. It's just generally within that 1 to 4 set range, generally 2 to 3. And pushing volume is just not fun. Sure, maybe once in a while, it could be fun to just push volume and see like what you're made of and just like try to get some grit going. But like doing that for weeks on end is so demanding and like it just feels like you're banging your head against the wall. There's probably no better way to stall out and burn than to just keep pushing crazy amounts of volume. I'll leave with this today. I can't remember the title of the paper that I'm talking about, but I believe it was a thesis for a PhD student somewhere in the Midwest who was studying the football program and their weightlifting. And he divided these football players into 2 groups. One group would go specifically off of the program that the coaches designed. They would have to do all of the volume no matter what. The other group would be able to truncate the training volume based upon maybe like a daily readiness questionnaire, like if they felt sore or sick or something like that, they were allowed to take a few sets off. And I know that at the end of this research study, both groups' outcomes were essentially the same in terms of gains. And now that's just a paraphrase, and I could be missing the mark with the conclusion of that, but I don't really think that I am. I really wish I could remember the name of the study, and I can't remember the author's name. But it's a really awesome paper. And I think that's just a great example of our inability to predict like a certain training stimulus, and especially in terms of volume. And rather, I think we should pay more attention to our bodies and our current state of mind and design training based upon that, or manipulate training based upon that. And definitely not go about things from the mindset of, well, I have to do this particular set of volume because the training program said so. Training is fun.